Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rovardo, back at it with another New York Giants video for you guys. And I'm excited because Eli Manning's involved. Kadarius Toney shoots back at the fans that are talking crap about him. But really just the Eli Manning quote had me in tears over Father's Day weekend. I hope you guys had a fantastic Father's Day, spent time with family, maybe hit the beach. It was a beautiful weekend. I went down to New Jersey and Point Pleasant, so if you've ever been there, very interesting scenes, cool nightlife. Didn't sleep much, but what do you expect, man? What do you expect when you're going out and having a good time on Father's Day? But went back, saw my dad, everybody, and it was a nice time. But I have to say, Eli Manning's joke, I was absolutely crying. The guy is way funnier than he lets on. The legends of Eli and his jokesters and pranks throughout the years kind of vibrated throughout his teammates, but you never really get to see what he is like behind the scenes all the times. You only really get to see Eli's face after an interception or a touchdown, and usually it's exactly the same, just this like kind of dull, just non-smile, but more like expected. But Eli's actually a really big prankster, Anthony. And I know you know this. You love Eli. You know all about his jokes in the past, changing languages on teammates' phones and stuff like that. How are you doing today? And tell us some of your favorite Eli jokes.
Yeah, I'm doing good, and of course, happy Father's Day to everybody. I hope you had a good Father's Day. I spent mine pretty much just watching golf, watched Rory McIlroy implode at the end, which is disappointing because he's my favorite golfer, but congrats to John Ram, everything. It was a fun tournament to watch. But with Eli Manning, of course, I know all about his jokes. I've been, watching Eli like a hawk for the entirety of my life just because he's my favorite football player ever, and he is a really funny character, and so is his brother Peyton. I know Peyton has Peyton's Places, the ESPN Plus show. I love that show. It is super entertaining. Peyton makes it really, really fun to watch and learn about the history of football just because he's so charismatic. It's so funny, and he's had Eli on a couple of times, and they joke around with each other, and it's always a good time watching those two because they have such great chemistry. Like, they're brothers, but, on screen, they're really good together. And Eli Manning has his own show coming out, too, Eli's Places, where he's going to be going through the history of college football. And I can't wait for that because Eli's just as funny and charismatic as Peyton. Peyton does an amazing job, and I'm pretty confident that Eli will, too. So when I see videos like this of Eli Manning telling dad jokes or just being funny or hearing stories about how funny he was, I'm just getting more and more excited for Eli's Places to come out. I think that's going to be a great show for fans of football, college or NFL to watch. And of course, Giants fans, we should all stay tuned to that and watch that pretty closely just because we want more Eli Manning content, right? Eli Manning is the man, and I love watching him do whatever in the media. I think he's really great in the media. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting a pretty big position in sports media at some point down the road, outside of this ESPN Plus show. I guess that is a pretty big position, but I wouldn't be surprised if one day he's in the booth or if he's working with the Giants media team or something like that, because he is really, really good at that stuff, and so is Peyton. So it's going to be exciting, of course, just watching now the second part of Eli Manning's football career. But first, he was playing quarterback for the Giants for 20 years. Now, the second part of his career, he's going to be in football media. And I think that's something that's really exciting that Giants fans can look forward to. Because Eli, while he might not be on the team anymore, he's still present. And I think that's a great thing because, he is a hero for this franchise. And we love to see him do great things. And we're going to continue to see him do great things just in a different fashion.
Hey, man, as long as Eli's around the team, around football, cracking jokes, doing his thing, I'm here for it. I'm here to see Eli having some fun. And for the most part, his joke over the weekend, there was one joke that had me in tears, and I'll try and reenact it as best as I can. But he basically is like, he's talking to Sean O'Hara, and he's like, what is Tom Brady's favorite wine? And he goes, I can't beat the Giants. That's as best as I could do it. You got to go watch the video. I'll link in the description. It's freaking hilarious. And Eli, just the shot at Tom Brady alone is worth the watch. It's freaking hilarious. I hope Tom sees it and has some sort of backlash or some sort of like joke to come back on him. But it was absolute classic joke, taking shots at Tom. And we all know that Tom says he would trade multiple of his Super Bowl rings to go back and win that perfect season and beat the Giants in the Super Bowl. He would give up multiple rings to win just that one. That's how big it was. He says he still has nightmares about it. Michael Strahan coming for him, Justin Tuck coming for him. And I would too, man. Just an absolute, if you're a Giants fan and you were around for that time, if you're not too young, you remember that like the back of your hand. You know what I mean? Like, you remember that moment, that day to perfection. I remember falling out of my chair. I remember my heart beating out of my chest. I think that game alone either took 5 years off my life or gave me 5 years. I'm not exactly sure yet. We'll find out in about 45 years how I'm doing. But I'll tell you what, that was the most stressed I've ever been. Work, anything in life, that was the most stressed like 20 minutes at the end of that game that I've ever been in my life. And I was like 9 years old, so it was that intense. But you guys all remember that. Taking shots at Tom Brady is always a classic. When it's Eli doing it, absolutely freaking hilarious. Absolutely freaking hilarious, Anthony. But, Father's Day is over. Heading on now we're wrapping back around next year for Mother's Day again. Always love me some Eli Manning. But I'll tell you what, one more segment we want to talk about. Just a quick video today because, there's not really that much going on in Giants Nation. Not that much to talk about. Nothing, until camp starts in a couple of weeks. We'll be doing some breakdowns, some film breakdowns of a couple of players leading up to this time. Maybe we'll do a matchup of week 2. And, we'll get some cool stuff out there for you guys. But for now, just getting as much information as we can, talking about these cool things. And one of the things that kind of hit me over the weekend was Kadarius Toney shooting back at fans, kind of talking crap about him, saying negative things, saying he shouldn't be making music. Like, what's that about? Who really cares if Kadarius Toney is making music on the side? Do you really care, Anthony? I don't freaking care. Le'Veon Bell makes music. A ton of players make music. No one says a word about it. He's been rapping for 3 years. I'd rather have him be rapping and making music and being creative than going to places where he get himself in trouble like DeAndre Baker did, or doing stupid stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if he's in the studio making music, I know for a fact he's not doing anything dumb. And that's kind of all I have to say about Kadarius Toney. And he did respond saying something interesting. He says to the fans that were talking poorly about him, I mean, aside from the awful grammar, we're just going to ignore that. Don't come over here commenting on my music, and it ain't got to do and it ain't got in to do with you. I've been rapping almost 3 years now. You late. Football ain't going nowhere. I'm going to live my life however I want. Whatever is said, I don't care. On God, football is something I do. It don't make me who I am. Now, the only thing that scares the crap out of me about Kadarius Toney is that he's actually answering negativity. The best players in New York, the ones that don't get in trouble, ignore everything. Eli, ignore everything. Daniel Jones, ignore everything. Saquon, ignore everything. That is how you succeed in New York. The second you start tweeting back at fans, the second you start giving media headlines to write, the second you put yourself in the negative spotlight. Someone's got to tell Kadarius Toney this, because we do not want him to end up like OBJ and just kind of self-destructing. And of course, a lot of factors went into that, but it's happened to other players in the past, not just OBJ. Eli Apple, for one of them, Landon Collins. A lot of them have gone out and spoken poorly in the media about players, about the negativity they're kind of getting from the fans. Kadarius Toney's got to be careful with how he approaches this. That is the only thing I'm worried about. But for the most part, I don't really care about the fans talking negatively about him. He's just got to ignore it and move on and just keep doing his thing.
Yeah, I agree. This to me is a non-issue. I think that almost, players having some sort of hobby like this is something that can be very therapeutic for them. Like, playing football in the NFL can be very mentally taxing as well as physically taxing. It can just be very difficult for a human to live a life playing football as a job. Like, it's not an easy job to play professional football, and him having a hobby on the side to free his mind and connect with himself is not a bad thing. It's good for his mental, it's good for life just to have hobbies and enjoy life, right? If he's enjoying life to the fullest, he's probably got a clearer mind on the football field, and I think that's a good thing. I do agree maybe he shouldn't be responding to the tweets, but he only put out a couple of tweets and then moved on pretty quickly. I actually do enjoy his music. I think it's pretty decent, so I'm going to listen to it when it comes out, whenever he releases stuff. I don't think that it's like, garbage and, hurts my ears like I did with Antonio Brown's song that he put out a couple years ago. That one was really bad. Kadarius Toney has at least some sort of like flow and stuff. I kind of like his music, but I don't know, man. I don't see it as a problem that he makes music. We spoke to Aleem McNeil. He's a draft prospect that got picked up by the Detroit Lions in the 3rd round of this year's draft. Aleem McNeil also makes music, and he was explaining how it's really good for his mental, and it really helps him unwind and escape from the reality of the fact that he is a full-time football player. It's good for these players to have some sort of hobby, some escape from life. I know a lot of them play basketball in the off season pretty frequently to escape. Nobody looks at that with any, raised eyebrows. They just say, oh, he's just playing a sport. He's keeping himself in shape. Well, Kadarius Toney's keeping his mind in shape by having a hobby that he thinks is enjoyable and that keeps him at peace by rapping. And I think that's totally fine. And I think, maybe some fans just don't have the right progressive mindset when it comes to this sort of thing. Maybe they're just a little archaic here because making music is legitimately a form of therapy for people, and I think Kadarius Toney's probably using it in that way, and it's just something that he enjoys doing. Everyone should have a hobby. For your mental health, you should have a hobby. You need a hobby. If you don't have any hobbies, odds are you're probably pretty depressed with your life. Kadarius Toney has a hobby outside of his job, which is football. You guys have to remember, for these NFL players, football is not a hobby. It is absolutely a job, and they play the game because they love the game, but they also get paid to play the game, and that changes the way that you look at the game. It is a job for them. It's good for them to have a hobby outside of the sport, and I think that his hobbies could be a lot worse than making music in a studio every now and then. I really don't see it as an issue at all. Like, there's some players whose hobbies are gambling and, going out to clubs and throwing a lot of money away, or, putting themselves in bad situations, gambling on high stakes Madden games in trap houses like DeAndre Baker was. That's a bad hobby. That's like objectively a really bad hobby for any player or person to have. I think that standing in a studio and spitting some bars into a microphone is a pretty good hobby, therapeutic, and really non-problematic. So I have no problem with Kadarius Toney making music. I have, a grievance with anyone who does. I don't understand it. Maybe you can explain it in the comment section if you have some sort of problem with this, but I really don't understand why you would. I think this is a good thing for people to have hobbies, and Kadarius Toney has a hobby to help him escape from the reality of playing football 365 days a year, because you have to train 365 days to be an NFL player. So I salute, more power to you, Kadarius, and hope you keep making bangers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really get the narrative that music is correlated to crime or whatever the hell people are conjuring up these days. Let's stick to positivity. Let the guy do his thing off the field. As long as it's nothing that's going to really affect him on the field, I'm okay with it. Like I said, if he's in the studio making music, he's not high stakes gambling in Vegas, or he's not doing some dumb crap like DeAndre Baker was at. I mean, let alone, I don't know, I wasn't at DeAndre Baker's thing, I wasn't there, but he got roped into with some pretty bad people, obviously, and I prefer if Kadarius Toney spent time with good people and not bad people. It seems like he has a good family around him, a lot of support, so I think the Giants vetted him pretty carefully. They made sure that they knew what was going on behind the scenes, and they feel strongly that he's going to be just fine. Now, the only thing that I hope he does in the future is just don't fight back. Don't like take shots at fans. Don't do anything that's going to put you in negative spotlight and allow the media to write headlines about you and make you more angry or more aggressive. Just ignore it. It goes away by itself. Nobody cares if you ignore it. The rapping is in my opinion a positive and not a negative. Some people might disagree with that, but I really couldn't care less about other people's opinions. And I wish that Kadarius Toney would also embody that same spirit. But guys, thank you so much for tuning into Fireside Giants. Just a quick little video today for you talking about Eli's dad joke, absolute classic, legendary dad joke, and Kadarius Toney and this negative BS that's been hovering around the media for a couple days here. But my friends, thank you so much, and make sure to subscribe below on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.